now we've started doing live AMAs for the past couple of months, and this is our third live AMA.
Right.
For everyone who's watching, I'd like to welcome Kerim Derhalli to Tile Talks. He is the founder and CEO of a fintech app called Invstr. Invstr is aimed at empowering the next generation of investors. And I guess we'll start off with the first question. Maybe introduce yourself.
Yeah, no, great. Apologies for running so late. It's great to be on the show and chatting to you all. So my name is Kerim, as Rajiv said. I've been running Invstr now for the last 8 years. It's been quite a journey. And before that, I spent 30 years as a banker. I started all the way back in 1983, which is ancient history for most of you. It was an absolutely fascinating time. I started at JP Morgan on Wall Street in 1983. I spent 30 years as a banker. And it was just really quite a remarkable period of time in wholesale financial services. I got to live in the States. I lived in Tokyo. I lived in Singapore. I think I traveled to over 60 countries running various businesses. I ended up running a global $5 billion business with about 4,000 people and 35 offices. So I saw a lot of very, very different things. And I think, right now we're going through, I think, something absolutely remarkable. I think there's a revolution going on. There's a revolution, the information revolution is going on, and the information revolution is now manifesting itself in financial services. And we're seeing that in fintech as well. And I think this is a really, really exciting time for all of us. So delighted to be with you all.
Thank you. Yeah, I've been using the Invstr app for quite some time now, and I'm really enjoying it, like getting involved in fantasy finance and learning about different markets. One question I have is like, what experience in your professional life as an investment banker kind of led you to starting Invstr, or what kind of stories did you see?
I mean, look, there are a lot of stories I can tell you about investment banking. I mean, I did at the time one of the world's largest IPOs. It was the IPO for $21 billion IPO for Agricultural Bank of China, 350 million clients. That's now dwarfed by the $350 billion IPO for Ant Financial, which a friend of mine is working on. But I did some very big deals. I negotiated for against the Russian government really during the debt crisis of 1998, the Russian default. So I had a lot of fascinating experiences. But I think what the thing that struck me back in 2008, 2009, during the debt crisis and the crash that we saw back then, is that the financial industry had really lost its way. I mean, finance plays a really vital role, particularly in a capitalist economy, as the go-between between people who have more money, savers, and people who need money to invest. And I think it plays a really valuable and powerful intermediary role, making sure that the capital flows to where it's needed. And what became very, very evident is that the wholesale financial world, the financial industry, had really overreached itself. It had become too risk-seeking. There was frankly not enough understanding of the products that were being created. There was a kind of an ignorance on the part of risk managers and other people of what was really going on. And so I think the industry lost its way and got too far away from that core social purpose of bringing savers and investors together. And I realized that obviously through the crisis. And then starting in about 2010, 2011, what I realized is that there were three incredible technologies that were coming together that were going to give the potential actually to make financial services much, much more inclusive and to bring more people into investing and make them aware of what's going on. And so those three technologies were cloud, mobile, and social. And I've always had the very, very strong belief that financial markets are fundamentally about people, and they're fundamentally about the interaction of people. And it struck me that social networks were the perfect technology to bring people together and to allow that dialogue around markets to take place. The kind of dialogue that as an investment banker, I was used to walking out onto a trading floor of 1,000 people and being able to walk around, loads of desks and get all the information that I needed. And so I realized we can replicate that that physical trading floor environment or that community through a social network. And obviously mobile, very, very relevant, because financial markets operate, particularly with crypto these days, they operate 24/7. And so having that access, that instant access to financial markets through a mobile phone, that was a perfect technology as well. The advent of the smartphone really starting obviously with the first iPhone in 2007. And then the third technology, cloud computing. And the reason that cloud computing was so revolutionary is that if today we wanted to try and create Invstr without cloud, and we built Invstr to be able to handle 5 million simultaneous users on the platform, that would have cost us tens of millions of dollars in hardware costs alone. And so cloud computing took all of that away, and it became a massive enabler for these mobile-driven businesses. So that was really the thinking behind, kind of the inspiration behind Invstr way back, starting in 2011. And then we finally got the business funded in 2013. And we've been building all the features that I'm happy to chat about ever since. But that was really the experience coming through the crisis, and then the kind of picking up, leveraging the power of technology.
Wow, that's a cool story and motivation for starting Invstr. I know fintech is a kind of a buzzword that's being thrown around a lot. Could you take the audience through what the face of fintech is, what does it mean, and why it's important to develop the future of technology?
So I think fintech is one of the most abused words in kind of around today, and people correlate anything to do with financial technology as fintech. And to me, that's just wrong, right? I mean, financial technology has been around for centuries in all of its different forms. For me, fintech is something very, very special. And to me, I mentioned a little bit earlier that to me, fintech is the manifestation of the information revolution in financial services. And if you look at what, that information revolution I'm talking about, the rise of the public internet in starting with 1995, the rise of social networks, starting in about 2005, the rise of the sharing economy with Uber and Airbnb starting around 2015, and most recently, the beginnings of the blockchain economy. To me, that's the information revolution. And there's a single common theme that runs through all of those evolutions, and that theme is the empowerment of the individual. What we're seeing as a result of the information revolution is that information and power that for literally 10,000 years sat at an institutional level has now been transferred to the individual. So for me, the information revolution is all about empowering people to, as we put it, it's our tagline now, to take charge of their futures. And I think that's the most powerful thing. So for me, fintech, it's not about financial technology. It's not about security on a credit card or all these, obscure things. Fintech is about people, finally people being in charge of their financial future and having the ability to make financial decisions for themselves. And why is that important? Well, that's important really at a very big picture in the following way. I believe that financial sustainability is as big a threat to our civilization as environmental sustainability is to the planet. What we've done since the debt crisis, right? The debt crisis, 2008, 2009, the world had about $140 trillion worth of debt. And that was deemed to be too much. And we almost capsized the entire economic order in the world. What we've done since the debt crisis is to add about 80% more debt. We've added $110 trillion worth of debt. And we've saddled not my generation, but your generation with an unsustainable amount of debt. And actually, through the COVID crisis, that's only got worse. And so what we've created a really big problem. The solution to that problem is to do the opposite. When you borrow that much money, what are you doing? What are we doing as a society? What we're doing is we're stealing from the future and giving to the present. Right? We're saying we're going to spend all of that money that we've borrowed today, and we're going to take it, and someone else is going to have to pay the bill 20 years from now, 10, 20, 30 years from now. That someone else, by the way, is you, all of you. So this is why it's really important. The solution to that is to do the reverse. The solution is to take from the present and to give to the future. And that fundamentally is the process of investing. Investing is about the future. It's about caring about the future. It's about providing for the future and creating a future where there's resource, where there's the resources to pay off all of this debt that we've created. Now, there are probably three groups of people who could invest that you would expect would be the people investing in the future. The first are governments. Well, governments are actually the major culprits. Governments are the ones, for the most part, who are borrowing all of this money and spending it today and creating the massive debt burden that we've assumed. The other group of people that you would hope would be the people making investments are companies. And companies are not investing in the future. What companies are doing is they're borrowing money and they're buying back their own shares, either their own shares so that the CEO gets paid a fortune because his stock run up, or they're buying other companies' shares. They're doing financial investment. They're not doing real investment. They're not creating the production that we need eventually to pay off that debt. So who's left? The people that are left are people like us, right? Individuals are the only people who are in a position to make that investment that we're going to need to pay off all those debts that we've got coming due in the future. And that's where investing is fundamentally so important for society. And look, the other reason, and it's much more trivial in a sense, but the financial industry has been telling people for decades, and I was part of it for 30 years. Financial industry has been telling people for decades that fundamentally they're incompetent, that they don't have the capacity, the skill, the know-how, or the capability of managing their own money, and that people should give money to so-called professionals and experts to manage on their behalf. And every single study you look at demonstrates very, very clearly that on average, the financial industry destroys value. So if you give, they underperform the financial markets. Asset managers globally underperform the financial markets by roughly the amount that they charge individuals to manage their money, call it 2% a year. So effectively, the entire asset management industry is nothing other than a tax, a transfer tax from the large part of the population to this tiny slither of asset managers who are fundamentally destroying value. Okay, they're an economic tax. They're a tax on the global economy. And that's why it's really important for individuals to stop giving asset managers all of their money, to consistently underperform, and to start doing it for themselves. And this is really what Invstr was created to do. It was created to promote investing broadly, but specifically to empower individuals to take charge of their own financial future and to give them all the tools and the environment that they need to become skillful, competent investors, confident investors themselves. And that's what Invstr is all about. And I'm so proud to be part of it and part of that mission.
Yeah, so that's a great mission. And I have two questions in response. So I know you gave a great analogy for talking about how we can contextualize debt in the future. Is there another way any person who has no knowledge of finance can understand why they should care about debt? And my second question is, what are the key features of Invstr and why is it separated from other fantasy finance applications?
Okay. I'll think about your first question and how I explain debt and why it's so important. And let me tell you a little bit about the key features of Invstr. So when we set out to build Invstr, what we did, and this is, when you're building any business, what's so important, the starting point has to be, who are your clients and what do they need? Okay. And we actually went out, we surveyed 4,000 millennials in every age group and across the US and in every geography in the US. And we said, really, we asked a number of questions. We asked them, do you want to invest? If so, are you investing? And if not, why not? And we got an overwhelming response as follows. And I'm going to paraphrase, this very extensive survey that we did. And the overwhelming response was, yes, absolutely, we want to invest. So 90% came back and said, yes, we want to invest. And by the way, we don't trust anyone else to invest on our behalf. We don't trust professionals. We don't trust governments. We definitely don't trust the banks. We want to do it ourselves. We trust ourselves first. We trust family and friends second. We trust strangers third. And then we trust the experts last. So we want to invest. And then when we said to them, but are you investing? They said, no, we're not investing. And fundamentally, it came down, people were afraid to invest. It goes back to what I was saying earlier about how the financial industry had spent so much time putting people off and telling them how hard it was for them to do that. And so people were fundamentally afraid to invest, and they didn't have the knowledge, and they didn't feel like they had enough money to invest. And so what we did at Invstr specifically has been to address all of those issues, those problems. And our mission is to help people build the confidence and the knowledge and the wealth that they need to become successful investors. And we did it, one of the main ways that we did it was to make it fun. We think it's so important, when you learn anything, when we start learning, even as young children, the way that we learn naturally is through games, is by playing games. And so we built a game called Fantasy Finance, which I know a lot of you, have played. We built a game called Fantasy Finance, which is a portfolio management game that takes place in real time. The only thing that's different about Fantasy Finance is the money, right? Everything else is real. The news is real. The stocks are real. The prices are streaming real-time prices. They're all real. And what Fantasy Finance helps people to do is to learn the essentials of investing. That investing is not about making dollars and cents. Investing is about generating a return on your capital consistently over time. Hopefully that message comes across. And that in order to do that, to preserve your financial capital, you need to be diversified. Because if you're over-concentrated, that's a great way for the market to chew you out. And in order to preserve your emotional capital, which I believe is almost as important as your financial capital, you shouldn't overtrade the market, right? Because when you overtrade the market, you're going to end up second-guessing yourself. You're going to end up getting out too soon or getting in too soon or whatever it is, and you're going to get emotionally chewed up. And so that's why we ration the number of trades that people have. And so we're trying through the game to teach people the essentials, but making it fun, because our fundamental belief at Invstr is that every single person on the planet has the capability to be a successful investor, and that we can learn to invest in the same way that we learn to play a sport or a musical instrument. You've got to get fit, you've got to practice, you've got to perform. Exactly the same thing when it comes to investing. So the game is about helping people get fit and practice. We built then a social network, because learning by playing goes so far. I think one of the most powerful ways that people like to learn today is from each other. And so peer-to-peer learning, and I was saying earlier that financial markets are all about people. So having a social network where people can share ideas and help each other learn some of the principles, look out for stocks that are going up, look out for stocks that are going down. Having a supportive communities, we've had over 750,000 people play Fantasy Finance in 224 countries around the world. Having that kind of a network of people that you can call on, you can make friends with, that you can connect with, that you can share posts and views with, that's a really, really powerful experience, whether you use the feed or you use the private leagues that we've got. We've had over 70,000 private leagues created. You guys obviously have created your own private leagues as well. And we've obviously got direct messaging. So you can communicate one-on-one, one-to-many, or one-to-all through the social features that we've made available. And then we said, okay, well, learning by playing is great. Learning from peers and friends is also great, but maybe that's not enough. And then we went and built Academy. And we spent time thinking really about the structure of Academy and making it a syllabus. So Academy is obviously slightly more formal learning process. We still try and make it fun, so you can like the lessons and you can leave comments and you win trophies, and there's a certificate at the end and confetti and all the rest of it. But it's obviously a slightly more structured learning process. We spent a lot of time thinking about what is the right structure, and so that someone starting with almost zero knowledge can go through Academy and by the end of it be reasonably confident, have learned all the things that they practically need to know to be a confident and a knowledgeable investor. And we've had over 50,000 people go through Academy, and we're going to be turning it into a book and publishing it as a book very, very soon. So we're, those are the main features that we put in place fundamentally to help people learn, and that has really set us completely apart from every other fintech, because the other fintechs think purely in transactional terms. They think, can I make payments easier? Can I make brokerage easier? And that's not the fundamental need. When we surveyed these thousands of people, in fact, it was in 2016 when we were creating some of the feature set, and we said, what is it that you need? Not a single person said to us, we need commissions to be zero, right? The cost of commissions is a problem for high frequency traders, people who are paying their broker too much, or people who've got a lot of money. It's not a problem for the vast majority of people, the 90% of people who aren't investing today. There are 155 million millennials and Zoomers in the US alone. 90% of them aren't investing. Their problem is not high commissions. Their problem is education and learning and confidence. And that's what Invstr does. And so that's a massive difference when you compare us with any other fintech platform. Everyone else is focused purely on the transactional side. Having spent now 38 years in financial markets, I realized the transactional piece is the very end of the chain. It's almost the least important thing. It's the dialogue and the learning and the research and the following the markets and testing out your strategies. That's the 99% of what investing is, and that's what we set Invstr up to do. And we're going to be, by the way, addressing the remaining 1%, very, very soon, and creating. We have a brokerage platform on Invstr. We're actually upgrading that brokerage capability. We've partnered with some great partners, and we're going to be rolling out what we think is an absolutely compelling brokerage and beyond a feature set and platform. But we'll be talking more about that in later. So that's the fundamental investor proposition. It's a great learning environment that's fun, that's social, that's been really well thought out, that's really easy. The Academy is really easy to get through. We designed it kind of with young teenagers, even with a 10-year-old in mind, that anyone could get through. So that's my pitch on the Invstr feature set. We've won award after award now for what we've been doing, and this whole theme that we have, which is really about empowering people first. Because I believe also very, very strongly there's a massive shift going on in the world, and that companies today, if they want to be successful, need to demonstrate that they're creating value for society before they make money. And I think this old habit of being a profit maximizer, and then through an act of conscience, giving back something to society through some corporate social responsibility, I think those days are finished. I think companies today need to be socially responsible at their core and be seen to be socially responsible at their core. And that we hope that by doing that, they can then earn the trust of society and then earn the right to make money. And that's how we've structured Invstr. It's a very non-capitalist way to go about it, in a sense, coming from an arch capitalist like myself, but I think it's absolutely the right thing to do. And we've built our brand on doing the right thing and putting people first and other people's interests first, way before our own. Whereas I think most of our competitors have approached things in a very old economy fashion. And I think that's not going to be successful in the long run for them. So that's the pitch on Invstr. We're all about helping people, as we say, take charge of their financial future, make a change to the world, which I think is so important. Shall I go back? Do you want to come back?
Was there like a specific moment that made you switch from being like an arch capitalist to like realizing the true value of like people and human capital?
I don't know if there was a moment in time. It's funny, back in the summer of 2012, I wrote the first business plan for Invstr, and we actually printed it and published it. It was in a brochure, and I went around raising money for the idea. And even back then, over 8 years ago, it's in print. I could show you in print. It's one of our first branding efforts. But even back then, it was really important to me. And I'll tell you. I was being interviewed yesterday, and I was asked about kind of what was my inspiration, my broader inspiration. And the story I told was the story of a man who, when he was probably your age, Rajiv, was earned a scholarship to go off to study abroad, and so he traveled several thousand miles to go to a university abroad. And while he was abroad, he lost his home, he lost his family, he lost his entire country. And he was all on his own, penniless and stateless. And so what did that man do? What that man did was he worked hard, he finished his studies, he borrowed the money to get his first job. He worked really hard at that. He met someone, he fell in love, he had a family, and through his hard work and determination, he was able to give his children an amazing education, one of the best educations that money can buy, certainly in the UK. That man was my father, and he gave me an enduring belief in people and our ability as people to achieve. And it's become my mission to help people succeed no matter what their circumstances. So in a way, I've always had that in me. I mean, I've had that in me I'm 57, believe it or not. I've had that in me my entire life. So there's something, at my core, which is about helping other people. And yes, I had a fantastic career, but it's always been in me to try and give back in some way. And I saw the opportunity to do it. And that's really what's been behind Invstr at a personal level as well.
What have been some of the largest challenges you faced in the last 10 years with Invstr?
Look, there are when you setting up a business, a digital business, what I try and say is that there are only two things you've got to get right. You've got to build a product that is great, and then you've got to let people know that it's out there, right? So and those two things though contain a whole host of challenges. So everything from making sure that you've got the right, you're aligned with client needs, you're delivering them in a way that they value, and that you can get the message out there and build the brand and build the channels and all the rest of it. And so it's not easy, right? It sounds easy. Build something that people want, and then tell them it's out there. But it's a very, very complicated process. And the other major challenge that we had is as we built Invstr, no one else in the world has built anything like Invstr. No one else in the world has combined an entire game, an entire social network, an entire learning management system, an entire front end of a market data and content and news handling system, and a brokerage capability, which we have today, which we're improving, enhancing. No one in the world had ever done anything like that. And so we made many mistakes. We made many mistakes in the product and the features. We tested, we tried, we tested, and the issue is we persevered. And we persevered to a point where now we've got a product that everyone wants. I mean, there's I talk to people, senior bankers, and they say every single bank, every single financial institution wants what you have. And there's one very, very large bank. It's a very, very large American bank, and they used to call me back every year and they say, Kerim, tell us how do we do content? And I tell them how we do content, at least. Then they say to me, Kerim, okay, come back and tell us how do we do social, right? What's the right approach for social? So I tell them what we're doing about social. Then they'd say, Kerim, how do we do gamification, right? Because everyone loves to play games, and mobile games is the biggest thing. How do we do gamification in finance? I tell them how to do that. And this is a bank that's spending $1 billion a year on digitizing the experience, and they've launched products and they've had to shut them down, and they just don't. I mean, even for the biggest banks in the world with all the money in the world to spend, they struggle to get it right, and they haven't been able to get it right. And we don't have anywhere near the resource that they have. We've only really got our ingenuity and our determination, and we've had to tackle these problems that no one else has been able to address properly, and to bring together all of these technologies. And I think it's been really hard. It's been really hard on the engineering side. It's been really hard on the product design side. It's been really hard on the marketing side. But now everything is falling into place, and this is a really, really exciting moment in our journey, because everything is falling into place. The product is there, it works. We're about to take it to the next level. People have heard about Invstr. I mean, I run into people and they say, there's this great new app that we're using to teach our kids how to invest, and they say, what's it called? They say it's Invstr. And I said, well, actually, yeah, no, we built that. And so it's really, really nice to hear these stories. So we're getting, everything is falling into place, but it hasn't been an easy, right? And when you're doing something really challenging, something really worthwhile, if it's too easy, you're probably not pushing yourself hard enough, right? You're not setting the bar high enough. So it hasn't been easy, but the great thing, we all know, I've got an absolutely amazing team. I'm really, really privileged to work with everyone that I work with at Invstr. We're super lucky to have such talented people across the business. And we all believe in what we're doing. I mean, that's really what keeps us going, and that's what's kept us going to deliver the product that we have today.
How do you go about building a positive mindset team culture?
It's an amazing question. One of the other core values that we have. Actually, I'll tell you the three core values that we have as a business. The first is individual empowerment, and I've told you that story. The second core value that we have is diversity, and the third core value that we have is collaboration. So in terms of diversity, I come from a mixed ethnic, cultural, religious background. I moved seamlessly between cultures when I was a very young boy, and I've traveled and lived all over the world. And for me, diversity is essential, and it's an essential ingredient in success. And so we encourage diversity. I actively seek out diverse people, because I know that by bringing in diverse people with different experiences, skills, gender, cultural, whatever background, that the team is stronger as a result. The other, the third value that we have is collaboration, and really kind of what we expect people to do when you're trying to genuinely collaborate. And there's a massive difference between collaboration and cooperation, right? Cooperation is when two people see it in their own self-interest to work together. Collaboration, which is, I believe, what we've been able to achieve at Invstr. Collaboration is when people say, you know what, my self-interest doesn't matter. What we're trying to achieve together is far more important. So let's work on maximizing that. And as a result, I know I'm going to do well, but let's put our common purpose together. And so, look, I think it's the job of a leader to do a number of things. It's the job of a leader to lay out a vision that people can believe in. And then it's also the job of a leader to hire the kind of people with the right attitude, people who are willing to leave their ego at the door and to join and to sign up to a mission, and to be part, and to feel like they're part of something. And I think that's the essence of trying. And so we hire people, yes, with the right skill set and the right intelligence level, and people who I hope will challenge me on everything that I say or do if I'm doing something wrong. But people who are willing to collaborate fundamentally, and people have the right attitude. And I certainly don't always get it right. And so, but over time, over a period of time, we've ended up with a team that I think is absolutely spectacular in terms of its diversity, in terms of its talent, in terms of its capacity to work together. And we're producing, as a small team, there are only about 27, 28 of us around the world. We're producing, I think, far more than much, much larger teams. And I've run teams of literally thousands of people. We're producing so much more than these large teams because I think people feel genuinely empowered to do what they need to do. And we have this diversity of skills, and we collaborate to produce great results.
Wow, that's a really great explanation of how you improve team culture. I mean, I was inspired. For me, I was learning about team culture from watching sports, like head coaches and team principals, and how they talk about empowering their players, and how it's a business too. So what kind of advice do you have for college students now that are maybe starting their freshman year, or maybe they're graduating and trying to get a job?
Right. Look, the first thing I would say is, the world is changing dramatically. And as I was saying at the beginning, the information revolution is changing everything that we know about the world, right? Every single structure that we've had in the world, governments, political parties, the nation state, religions, universities, media, banks, corporations, everything is changing, right? All of these institutions are losing power and individuals are gaining power. And that's going to be a turbulent process. It's not going to happen smoothly, but everything that we know about society is changing. And so I think, one of them, and the lesson that I've learned, late in life is that it's really hard to plan, right? It's really hard to plan in such a dynamic environment. And we've seen, how even just this year, how our whole working culture has been accelerated. We're all naturally working from home. We're all far more, comfortable working, either in the office or at home. So things, change is happening, and it's happening at an accelerating rate because of technology and because of circumstance. So I'd say, the most important thing is that you need to be flexible. You need to approach the world with a very flexible, mindset, because the world that you know today is not going to be the same as the world you experience 10, 20, 30, 40 years from now. The other thing, that I would say is that, and this is something that kind of occurred to me recently, life is not a race, okay? In life, the person who finishes first is the loser, right? In life, you want to be the last man standing, not the first man to go. So take a long view. Take as long a view as you can. And, and obviously I've got to do the pitch for investing as well. In that circumstance, invest in your future. And the sooner you can start investing, with whatever money you've got, and the sooner you can start to make yourself a competent investor and you have a long view, that's a massive advantage, because you've got the power of compounding working for you. You've got the power of inflation working for you. You've got productivity growth over time working for you. So even if you're an average, mediocre investor, over the next 40 years, you've got all these natural forces helping you to create financial security in your future. So I would say be flexible in your outlook and take a long-term view on life. And it's not a race. It's not a race, right? You look at, Warren Buffett is worth, I don't know, $80 billion. There's a great article I read, I think about a year ago. He said most of that money, 79 billion of his 80 billion, if that's the right figure, he started to make when he was in his 60s. So, he's an icon. And, yes, he was a billionaire when he got to be 60, but the massive wealth that he's created later on in life. So take a long-term view. Take a long-term view on yourself. And I think when we talk about investing, for me, investing is not just financial investing. Investing is everything. Invest in your relationships, but above all, invest in yourself. Right? Invest in your human capital as well as in your future financial capital. If you can do that, you take a long-term view. And you remain flexible in terms of your attitude and your willingness and your capacity to work with other people, then I think you will go very far.
Awesome, that's wonderful. Hi, I just wanted to say hello. I know we weren't properly acquainted. I'm Sid. So thank you so much again, Kerim. I love what you're saying so far, and truly, I'm really thinking it's really resonating with the audience, and I really appreciate you coming on. I definitely did want to ask, and Rajiv's a show stealer here, and I definitely wanted to come in and just ask at least one question. So one thing is, of course, yeah, I wanted to definitely ask. So you're very experienced, as you can, I'm sure the audience can definitely tell when it comes to fintech platforms, and you're focusing a little bit more on the centralized aspect of it. And now one thing that's really focusing and really booming, especially as of now, and really what lots of people are focusing on in the future, is sort of the decentralized aspect of fintech. So could you sort of comment on sort of what are your opinions on how decentralized fintech might be maybe a bull or bear for the future?
Look, I think I'm bullish on decentralized fintech. Absolutely. I think what blockchain is going to do for the world is blockchain is going to enable, and this is the dream of blockchain, it's going to enable people all around the world to transact with each other safely and without having to trust each other. And so this decentralization, that is going to enable comparative advantage to go, if you look at Adam Smith in, The Wealth of Nations in the classic sense, comparative advantage at a nation state level. We're going to be able, through decentralization, to extend comparative advantage to an individual level. And what that means is that we're going to unlock a level of productivity that we've never been able to achieve before. It makes me so bullish, the time when, there's so many bad things in a way going on in the world, but it makes me so bullish on the future, because we're going to be able, through decentralization, to bring strangers together all around the world and to enable them and empower them to transact and to benefit from each other's comparative advantage. So I think it's a really, really powerful thing. So I'm very, very bullish on decentralization. And I think it's going to be a fantastic thing. There are some issues, right? I'm not sure that the technology is fully there. I think there is still quite a few hurdles to go through before the technology is